Good afternoon. Our next video in the series is for adding and subtracting decimals. We have started adding and subtracting whole numbers and are now transitioning into decimals. So we're going to use the same strategies and apply them to decimals. It's really no different. So now that you know how to round decimals, you need to know how to add and subtract them to buy items in the real world. So we use this a lot for money, but we also use this skill to add or subtract parts of a whole. I remember in class that a lot of students were familiar with how to stack up the decimal point for decimals because you've been using money, which is great. So of course in some problems you're going to be asked to simply add or subtract whole numbers. And you've practiced this skill in many other grades, but remember that you are able to use either this traditional algorithm of regrouping or a flexible strategy of your choice, so you can pick that. Okay. The first problem we're going to take a look at is this example right here. 8,458 minus 3,479. I chose to show this in the standard algorithm. And the first thing that I want to note is it's always important to start in the ones column. Remember we talked about in place value, we understand place value from the right to the left. So in starting in the ones column, you have 8 minus 9. Well, right now in 4th grade, we're not aware of how to take a small number and subtract a large number from it. Of course, it is possible because we do have negative numbers, but for now, we're going to say that we are not able to do it with the knowledge that we have. So since I cannot do 8 minus 9, I need to borrow a 10 from somewhere, because remember, place value is based off of the unit of 10. So if I borrow from here, then it's kind of a trickle-down effect. So here's the work I have, and I'll walk you through. So for here I said, you know what, I can't take 8 and subtract 9, so I'm going to borrow from here, and I'm going to bring this 10 on over. I already had 8, so I have to add the 10 to the 8, which gave me 18. This is the only time where you're going to bring the whole 10 over and add it to the number here, because the ones place had nothing to give. It's only going to gain numbers. Okay. Since I borrowed from the neighbor here, it technically would have made it a 4, but I can't do 4 minus 7, so I've got to borrow a 10 from the other neighbor. Well, then when I get over here, which made it 14 because I added 10 to it. When I come over here, that made the 4 a 3 because I borrowed from it, but guess what? I still can't do 3 minus 4. So I have to go next door and borrow another 10, which is what made it 13. And since I borrowed a 10 from him, he now becomes this 8 becomes 1 less, which is 7. Okay. Now that you've done the regrouping part, this part is rather simple. 8 minus 9, well, 9 is a double, so it must be 9. 14 minus 7, that's also a double, so it's 7. 13 minus 4 is 9, and 7 minus 3 is 4. Put your comma in the correct place, which is 3 place values from the right, and you have 4,979. If you're having trouble with this particular skill here, please refer to my subtraction and addition of whole numbers video and go back and refresh your mind with that. Okay, so we already talked about the idea of having the same amount of digits when we compare decimals. That is just so important, because if not, we're comparing the ones to the thousands place or the tenths to the tens place, and that can get really confusing and we could get the wrong answer. So let's quickly review. When you have a problem like 5 and 31 hundredths plus 8 and 5 tenths, you need to add a 0 to the hundredths place value to be sure you're comparing correctly, because we want to compare the same values. A lot of times students would get confused and they would set up their paper as 5.31 plus 8.5, where the 5 would be right under the 1 and the 8 would be right under the 3, but we don't want that to happen, because then we're comparing the tenths to the hundredths and the ones column to the tenths. That would definitely get us the incorrect answer. Okay, so we would change 5.31 to 5.31 plus 8.50. Remember that 0 isn't adding any different place values. It's just saying that before it was worth 5/10 and now we're representing it as 50 hundredths. Remember, that's the same thing. If we have the hundreds grid, it would mean we had 5/10 shaded at the beginning, and now we're just wording it a different way and saying now I have 50 square shaded. It's the same value. So here, as you can see on the right, we have the fact that stacking your decimals is the most important skill to remember in adding and subtracting, other than the obvious advice, which is to be neat and organized. So you see, I have my standard algorithm. I have lined it up by the decimal point, and I've put in placeholder zeros where they belong. Now it's just stack and add. 1 and 0 is 1, 3 and 5 is 8. There's my decimal point in the line, and 5 plus 8 is 13. So my final answer is 13 and 81 hundredths. Now remember our unit on rounding and how important that is, right? To either do it at the beginning or go back in the end for a check. Make sure your answer is reasonable, right? 5.31, that's really close to 5. 8.50, that's pretty close to 9. So 5 plus 9, okay, is close to 13.81. All right, let's move on a bit. So if you're asked to tell the total cost of 3 t-shirts and 1 t-shirt costs $10.49, you should stack the price 3 times vertically with the decimal points lined up. So see what I have here. Okay, I've taken 10.49 for the first shirt, the second shirt, and the third shirt, and I've lined up all of the place values so that I'm comparing like things. Okay, here I show this in the standard algorithm. 9, 9, and 9 is 27. Carry my 2 over because that's technically in the tens column. 4, 4, and 4 is 12. Plus 2 is 14. So put my 4 down, carry my 1 to the next column. 1 plus many zeros is always going to be 1. And 1, 1, and 1 is 3. So I have $31.47. Now this is another option that you're able to do, which works perfectly fine. I can take all my place values and expand them out like an expanded form. Here I have all of my whole numbers. 10, 10, and 10 is $30. Then I have all of my tenths places, which is 40. So 40, 40, and 40 is $1.20. And then 9 hundredths, which are very small, 999 is 27. So I would take the 30 wholes and the 1 whole from here and add them together to get 31. And then I would take the 20 cents here and the 27 cents here and add it together to get 47 cents. As you can see, my answer is the same, so it doesn't matter which option you choose, whichever is your preference. Sometimes you'll see multi-step problems used with decimals, and be sure when you see those that you're using your understand, plan, solve, and look back method to really think about the problem before you dive into solving it. All right, in the next video, I'm going to show you 2 example problems and then have you practice the next 3. So stay tuned.